Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Today is Wednesday, October 13th, and we'd like to welcome you to today's training on changes to the System for Award Management, better known as SAM. So today's training is a part of the government contracting series that we do in partnership with the Ohio University PTAC. Let me introduce myself. My name is Shonda Harris. I'm with the Small Business Administration, the Columbus District Office, and we are privileged to be able to bring on these trainings and how to do business with the federal government with the PTACs, Procurement Technical Assistance Center. And this year, the beginning of the fiscal year, it's the beginning of the federal fiscal year, we're kicking off our government contracting training series with several trainings to lead up to one of our signature trainings, the Ohio Business Matchmaker. So if you've joined us, some of you may have joined us because you're interested in participating in the Matchmaker this year, which is always wonderful. The Ohio Business Matchmaker is an opportunity for small businesses to do business with government agencies, federal, state, city, county. So today, we want to give you a little foundation, give you some information about the System for Award Management, SAM, which for all federal vendors, you must be registered in. Now, I'm not going to go into more details because that will be the job of our speaker. But I do want to say with today's training, if you do have, because we'll give a little backdrop about SAM, about some of the changes, and I believe there'll be a demo as well. So if you do have questions, we do ask if you can go ahead and put them in the chat, and then we'll try to address them as they come up. And then I believe our presenter would like the demo to be interactive. So you could have a NAICS code or a specific industry that you want him to look up, and he can take that information. I think that's about it. If you want to also, in the presentation, you'll hear more about PTAC, Procurement Technical Assistance Center. If you were on before we started the webinar, you may be wondering, what is PTAC? Or how can I get more information? And how can I learn about doing business with not just the federal government, but with any government entity? The PTACs are the great organization that can help you do that. Without further ado, well, one last housekeeping. We will ask that you please keep your mics muted and your cameras off so there won't be a distraction to the presenter. And I believe that's it. Well, today's training will be brought to you by Billy Grill, who is the PTAC counselor in Dayton, Ohio. So Billy will share a little bit about the PTAC, who they are, what they do, and then get started in our training today on SAM, changes to SAM.Gov. So Billy, with that, you can take it away.
Yeah, appreciate the introduction, Shonda, and thank everybody for taking the time out to join us today. It's definitely, it's a new system. They keep hiding buttons from people with every change they make. So if you use it often, you probably have experienced some frustration, but they're doing their best to get these changes rolled out and make it a transformative system for the government space. As you can probably tell from our conversation earlier, we're with the PTAC. We really do love what we do. We kind of roll with the punches when they make these kinds of changes, but overall, we live it. So if you ever have any questions or need anything, we're definitely always available. And I will go ahead and get the presentation pulled up. Like Shonda mentioned, I'm not a big fan of death by PowerPoint. So if you do have questions, we will have a demo later and it will be fairly interactive. Hopefully I can answer anything you guys need. Overall, it's still rapidly changing. So it's definitely something that we're going to keep up with. And it really comes down to getting comfortable with it, knowing its capabilities and knowing its utility. Every tool has a job, and this is one of your tools in your business development toolkit. So it really is important to know the system, and know where to get this information that the government makes public. By law, there's certain information that the government has to post, and this is one of the hubs for that information. So we'll go through some of the changes. We'll do a good system overview. I'll try to keep it light, try to keep it interesting. I know that not everybody is a geek like me, so you guys don't want to get into information and data change and extract, transform, load. But overall, I'll try to give you guys a good understanding of how and why. So with that, we'll start rolling through these slides. Again, I'll probably roll through this kind of quick on the slide side, because I think the better value is really getting into the system. You guys can throw me out different NAICS codes, different keywords, and I'll show you how to manipulate that criteria to get the results you need. Because really it's about taking the data in and then connecting those dots and turning it into information that you can act on. Actionable information is the goal here. So what we'll cover, we'll cover the IAE, and there is some acronym soup here today. I'll do my best. If I start talking in acronyms, it's a terrible habit I have. Just ask a question, stop me, and we can go back and kind of run through. But the IAE is the Integrated Award Environment. That's what GSA is putting together with all of these disparate legacy systems, pulling them under one roof and really increasing the transparency and the speed of government. Now I know that's kind of an oxymoron, speed of government. It's something that we're constantly working on to make sure that the public gets the data they need when they need it. And then we'll run through the domains, which it's a little bit different than what you're probably thinking a domain is. Everybody thinks a domain is a website or an address. These are actually legacy systems that they moved into the SAM or the IAE umbrella, and they're integrating those to make sure that you have a single source of authoritative data. We'll go over the merger. The merger happened back in May. With any big effort like that, there's bound to be some hiccups. There's definitely some bugs, but given that they're an agile development shop, they're working on those constantly. And I'll make sure to show you guys where you can submit feedback for each part of the website, because they do actually listen to us. It's kind of new that the government listens and makes changes based on user need, but they're always constantly looking for that feedback. And myself and Jane are actually we're testers. When they come out with new changes, we get to go into their test environment and kind of mess around, kick around, see what we break, which is always fun. And then we'll look at your workspace. Your workspace is probably the single most used feature outside of contract opportunities. It's where you manage your entity. It's where you do your reporting now. It's where you assign user roles. So it's got a lot of necessary function. So I want to make sure you guys are familiar with that. And then the most important, help and resources. They have a ton of resources. They have user guides, quick start guides. So help is there. But I always like to say, when you need it, just click the easy button and contact your PTAC. We do this every day. Instead of hunting and looking for buttons that they moved last week because of some rollout, just give us a call, because chances are we know where they are. And then the demo. I always like to get in, show you guys just real world examples. And I love a audience that's active. So don't hesitate, don't feel like there's any question that's not relevant. We can cover it all. And if I don't get to it today, I'm always available afterwards. Because like I said, we love what we do. So it's always our pleasure to help. A little bit about the PTAC. We are an we're part of APTAC, which is a nationwide association. I was actually looking for updated numbers earlier this week. I couldn't find any, so we're going to roll with the 2019 numbers. 24 billion in contracts. So obviously we're doing something right with our clients. And there's 94 PTACs with over 300 local offices, meaning that no matter where you are, you can access a PTAC. You can get help. There's somebody right by. If you ever have trouble finding that resource, I put the link down at the bottom of the slide, but I'm always willing to help as well. I always like telling people that even if it's outside of my purview, I really do enjoy it, and I'm always willing to help. And likewise with all of our counselors. The Ohio PTAC has a great team. We we basically help our clients navigate the nuances of contracting with the government. And that's everything from things like registering in SAM and getting started, all the way through post-award considerations, helping you plan kickoff meetings, helping you know the protocol for communicating with the client, which is definitely, it's important in the government space, the federal government, because there is protocol. There's times when you can and can't contact contracting. There's best practices for what you ask for, how you communicate, and some tips and tricks along the way too. Hopefully some I'll be able to share with you today. But on top of that, we also do a lot of events like this. We do a ton of group trainings. Our team has such great reach back and expertise. I'm amazed every day I get to work with them, because it ranges everything from our very own Jane Stewart, GSA expert, through state and local purchasing. We have former military. We really run the gamut, and together we're a really solid resource that just has such a breadth and depth of knowledge that you can't buy. So if you're thinking about reaching out, definitely contact us, fill out the application. It's a 5-minute online process, and we'll get you onboarded. But we also have a great value add, the bid matching services. So once you become a client, we take your profile, we take keywords, NAICS codes, PSCs, FSCs, all these different acronyms. But basically, we set you up in our system so that you're getting an email every day that is sending you information on government bids. Our bid match system searches 2,800 different databases, federal, state, and local. So if it's out there, if it's posted publicly, chances are it's going to show up in your email. And it's just such a great utility. And even if you're not actively working with the government, it's still great information to have, because it shows you what's coming up, what the government's buying. Are they buying what you're selling? And that's another aspect of what we do is that market research. We really dig in, and I'm a recovering data analyst, so I still get in and bulldog data. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy getting that information to you so that you guys can act on it and start taking advantage of what's out there in the public realm. We have access to market intelligence tools that we use internally, Easy GovOps, FedMine, Haystack, just a wealth of knowledge. And we're good at digging through it and making sure that you guys can understand it and act on it. One of the most important things is we're free. So, it costs you nothing but your time, which as a small business is valuable enough. I mean, you're living the dream. You're many hats, too many fires, not enough water. And we help you prioritize what's most effective. And a lot of that is, taking these vast amounts of data and boiling it down to what is essential to you. And you can get paralysis by analysis. It's definitely tough to get into the weeds, and that's part of the value that we provide. If anything, we're giving you value, information, and time back that you may spend hunting through data, hunting for the button that they just changed last week. So definitely recommend, if you aren't already, contact your local PTAC. So what is the integrated award environment? Well, it's run by GSA. It's their Office of System Management. And really what it's about is getting all of this data together that is mandated by law to be made public. Putting it in one place, making sure it's authoritative, it's correct, and it's current. And that's important, is current, because with the speed of business these days, if you're getting yesterday's data, then you're already working from a deficit. And they're really working to get all of these legacy systems under one roof to make the framework for conducting government business. And that's important because it's not just contract opportunities. It's registering your entity. It's getting your unique identifier. It's looking at past awards. It's doing your reporting. It's looking at wage data. It's just a whole swath of information that that you have access to, and it's free to use. And you'll see at the bottom of every slide, if I pull information from somewhere, I try to link it so that you guys have again the authoritative data source. If you ever have any questions on any certain slides, then you can always ping me and I can give you the direct link, or I can walk you through it. But these are the systems that they've worked on so far. So you'll see beta.SAM.Gov, which is now SAM.Gov. If you go to beta, they'll still kick you over to SAM. You have CPARS, which is contract performance, subcontracting, federal funding. You just have a whole just big conglomeration of these legacy systems that they're actively trying to move over. It sounds easy, just pop the system data in and make a landing page for it. But it really is a lot more difficult, and it's a massive undertaking they've been working on for years. So I always like people to just kind of take a step back. I know at certain parts there's frustration, but just remember these guys are trying. They're undertaking a huge effort, and so not everything is going to be perfect. But the important part is they have the ability and functions where we can give them that feedback. We can communicate with the system owners and the champions. So it's really come a long way from what it used to be. And I'm an old curmudgeon. I still, you darn kids, get off my lawn. I want my federal business opportunities daily back. But nothing stands in the way of progress, and they are making improvements daily. So it really just becoming comfortable with the system, knowing what the capability is, knowing its limitations, because it does have some. So just some stats you can see, and since I pulled this in FY20, it's probably doubled. It's a hugely active system. If you're in government contracting, you're touching it. I'd say I touch it multiple times a day, but at least when you're getting your save searches and your emails, and it's only going to grow. So just looking at the sheer scale of this kind of gives you an idea of the effort that it's taking to get these changes made. This is the new homepage. As you can see, these are the different domains. And that's what I was referring to. So they're former legacy systems. They now have their own neat little landing page, and they have their data moved over to SAM.Gov. I did some mapping for you guys. If you're like me, I talk in acronyms. So FBO, FPDS, SAM, and this just kind of gives you a quick look at what this really is. So your FBO is going to be your contract opportunities. Contract data is really just a reporting piece of FPDS, and FPDS is the authoritative source for past awards. So if I'm going to look at any past contract data, if I'm looking at a singular contract, I usually go to FPDS. You can set up your contract reports in SAM.Gov as well. But I just want to kind of foot stop that FPDS is still very much alive and well. It's still getting updated daily with data, and it's still a great utility. I usually use a mix of FPDS and USA-Spending.gov. If I'm doing more overall market research, big picture stuff, I'm going to USA-Spending.gov. I like to use that interface better, quite honestly. I think it's a lot more usable. But if I'm doing singular searches for contract info, if I want to know who the current warranted contract officer is, I go to FPDS because that is the authoritative source of your data. And again, if you have questions, yeah, I'm more than happy to walk you through kind of the whole market research process. And it's definitely a process. It's repeatable. It's something that you can nail down, use efficiently, and really use it to benefit your business. The contract opportunities domain is probably going to be your most used aspect of SAM. Again, it's the authoritative source, and any contract over $25,000 in value will be posted here. But there's a lot of other information posted here as well. Industry days, small business events, chances to really connect with the client. And that's important, especially in the last year plus, where we've had a huge impact of COVID and people working from home and less chances to go shake hands with the prospect over fried chicken and hard pasta at the Hilton Garden Inn. So it's even more important now to utilize the system to get information and ability to connect with the client. And unfortunately, right now, a lot of it's still virtual, but it's such a utility given that our business development processes have been turned on their heads in the last year. I'm very active in the BD, business development community. And I can tell you, those guys are pulling their hair out. Because A, they're extroverts, and so they'll talk to you all day. But B, they're relationship builders. And even though we're guided by the Federal Acquisition Regulation and the DFAR, this is still very much a relationship-based business. People are going to work with others they know, like, and trust. They're going to have their small cadre of subcontractors and teammates that they prefer to work with based on that relationship building over the years. So, again, the utility and the value of the system is really, it's invaluable. It's priceless to small business. So here's some quick search criteria. And I'm not going to drone on and run through every different bullet point in these slides. If you need the presentation, I'm more than happy to get it to you. Really, I think the value is going to be in the demo and the help and resources. But as you can see, keyword, organization, dates, yada, yada, yada. What I like to do, and I'll give you an example of this later on in the demo, I start out broad. So I think of data as a funnel. And what I'm doing is I'm starting out with 1 or 2 NAICS codes, and I'm getting that huge return of data, 60,000 opportunities maybe. But then I start narrowing it down based on different criteria. I like to go NAICS. If you have any niche keywords, any certain softwares that you use, I narrow it down by that. I definitely use the date function, the set-asides, place of performance. It's become a lot more usable now since they made the change to being able to search multiple states. So I'll set up regional searches. I'll set up searches based on certain buckets, categories of capability that I have. And here's some additional filters. I do actually use the inactive date. Basically, when an opportunity is due, they inactivate it. But if I'm going back and trying to look backwards on what the client's doing, sometimes you can find some really good nuggets using that. But overall, we'll stick to basic criteria. We're not going to get too complex. Keep it simple, stupid. As simple as complex enough, especially when you're dealing with this huge system. And it helps you act more efficiently as well, because you are looking through a massive amount of data. So the contract data domain, it's FPDS reporting is what it is. Govology does a great webinar on running these reports, but overall you have a couple options. You have static, standard, and ad hoc. Ad hoc is kind of your next level. It's where you're going into I think it's a MicroStrategy report builder, and you're building your own reports, and we'll look a little bit at the criteria. But even the static reports, the small business goaling report, the top 100 contractor report, all of those have great nuggets of data in there that you can use day to day in your business. And here's some quick training. So FSD, again with the acronym SOUP, it's the Federal Service Desk. You'll get referred there if you ever have an issue with SAM.Gov and you need a help desk. They are the help desk for SAM.Gov. They're great folks. You'll always get somebody on the phone. And we work with them quite often. I feel like I should buy those guys a fruitcake at Christmas, how much I call them. Kind of owe them one. But overall, you'll see on every page, there's different pieces of training, quick guides. The information's there, but again, we're your easy button. So if you ever have a question, you can always just ping us with an email. So looking at the static reports, one of my favorites is a small business goaling. It gives you information on each agency and whether or not they're meeting their small business goals, which can help you prioritize your outreach. If they're 2.45% out of a 3% goal, I may want to send over my capability statement and say, hey guys, not only am I a very capable company, but I can help you reach this goal. So everybody's happy, win-win. Your standard reports, it's spaced 36 reports, contractors, contract details, contractor type, and then you go into the ad hoc reporting, which is it's a whole new ball of wax. You can see some of the metrics here. I usually have some base reporting that I look at, but overall you can just see the different criteria that you can use. You can get pretty granular with these reports, and I linked a little reference guide for you at the bottom as well if you need more information, and we can always help with that as well. Again, if I'm doing overall market research, I'm probably going over to USA Spending, or I'm running the discrete contract searches through FPDS, or I'm using this contract data tool. Every tool has its utility, but they all belong in your business development toolkit. So it's great to be familiar with them. So they also have wage determination data. This is SCA and Davis-Bacon, basically prevailing wage data for any given area. Even if you're not working on a contract that requires it, it's always handy information to have. You want to know what the prevailing wages are in your MSA or your city. So definitely a great utility here. A little bit more about the SCA, just kind of explaining it a little bit further. This is service employees in various classes. And it's prevailing wage based on locality, so you can search by city, MSA, etc. And then I also again linked some resources and tools for you at the bottom. Davis-Bacon is similar. Basically, it's prevailing wage for classes of laborers. So it's a U.S. Department of Labor, and again, link at the bottom. Basically, what you're doing is when you're bidding some of these contracts, the government wants to know you're paying your people well. Wants to know that everybody's on a level playing field when it comes to that. So, great data to have. You can see it's a pretty basic search. Construction type is building, heavy, highway, and residential. You can get in there, run a state, county, start drilling down into the data. I just gave you a quick example. I did Ohio. So you can see, Cuyahoga, Summit, Ashtabula, and then kind of plethora up here. But this is what your data is going to look like. And then you can start drilling down into it, pulling the information, and using it for your government bids. Excuse me, allergy season has been it's been a doozy this year. So as I mentioned earlier, USAspending.gov is a great resource. And why do I mention it in a SAM.Gov presentation, you ask? Because SAM has federal hierarchy domain. I don't find it really usable. It's not well populated. The information isn't that granular. So I would suggest going over to USAspending.gov to look at their agency profiles. It's an excellent source of information. This is key when you're doing your market research. You want to be as well informed as possible about your prospective client. The client will appreciate it. It will allow you to talk intelligently. And it really gives you a lot of ammo to build your value prop, to reach out. And I'll make a guarantee, it will increase your response rates. It will increase your engagement with the client when you know what their budget and their strategy looks like. If you're ever going in cold to talk to a client, there's nothing that they appreciate more than you being able to pull out different strategic objectives and relate to them and say, here's how I will help you reach your mission. It's really key. And in the government space, sales cycles are long. You're looking at 12, 24, 48 months even. And during that cycle, it is vital that you are as well informed and as knowledgeable as your prospect as possible, because this is competitive. There's 28,000 companies that do what you do. There's different people, different business development guys that are building relationships with the clients every day. So if you're not, then you're doing it wrong. And part of that is being able to pull their strategy, being able to pull their budget, really knowing, well, hey, follow the dollar. I was always taught that from a business development perspective. And it is very dry and tough stuff digging through budgets. I used to, as an intern, I used to dig through the NDAA every year, and it was the bane of my existence. But I understand the value of it now, because you want to follow the dollar. The only way it's an opportunity is if you have a requirement and you have funding. So no funding, no opportunity, and you can really use that to prioritize your time. So the assistance listings domain, this isn't really what you guys are thinking of when you think about grants. These are federal programs. If you're looking for the smaller grants, you're going to grants.gov, which is probably where you'll fit better. But a quick example, I actually ran this for SBDC and PTAP. You'll look down here. This is 12.002, probably need to update it. But this is the PTAC for business firms. That's our grant, led by the DoD and the DLA. So why do you need this information? Well, if I'm bidding on an IT project that's coming out of Sinclair Community College, I may want to look at the grant funding and the grant requirements that gave them that money. It gives you a leg up on your competition. It helps you understand what their requirements are, their reporting, their limitations of the funding. So it's really good to do that extra bit of digging because it gives you a competitive advantage. And that's really what I'm here to help with. I want you to have every advantage possible because let's face it, doing business is tough enough. So why wouldn't you take advantage of all this information to get a leg up? So again, the merger, it happened in May. Yeah, quite honestly, it went smoother than I expected. There's no more beta.sam, it's SAM. They really made great improvements to your workspace, and we'll run through some of that a little bit later. They broke it down into domains, and so they're building this website based on best practices. And it's constantly changing depending on those best practices. So I gave you a little, before and after comparison guide. We'll take a look firsthand later on in the demo, but if you ever want, some more information, that's right there for you. A couple of frequently asked questions, and these are changing as well. If you're already registered, they migrated you. I remember when they did the Federal Business Opportunities daily migration. It was pretty painful because they wiped our data. And that was something that We spent years getting just right, getting that good Goldilocks mix. So they didn't do that this time, which is great. Lesson learned. And one thing that, I'm excited about, mostly because I'm a geek, but it's the improvement to the user experience with the Save Search notifications. So when I was getting FBO emails, they were informative, right to my inbox. They had everything I needed. Quick information on the contract, quick link directly to it. They're not there yet with the contract save searches. So they're working towards it, but right now you're getting a quick email based on your save search criteria. It's coming to your inbox, and then you're going back to site. One thing that we were working with clients on was updating their entity registrations. You got a 6-month grace period in between April and September. September is now over. So if you think that your entity is coming due for update registration, then reach out to your PTAC. I can hop in there. I can search for your entity. I can pull your due date. I can pull your reps and certs. Basically, I can give you everything that you'll need to get that done. Searches, again, the FBO debacle where they wipe data, they didn't do it this time, which is great. New information is the UEI. We were just talking about this earlier before the presentation, if you guys were on. They picked April 4th, 2022. Why April 4th, I don't know. But that's the date where your DUNS number will no longer be your authoritative unique identity identifier. So basically, they're rolling over without you having to do too much if you're already registered. If you do need to get a UEI and you're not registered in SAM, they're rolling over the capability to get your UEI in Q1 2022. If you're doing a complete SAM registration, you'll have one assigned to you either way. So really, there's not a huge change in process on your end, but it's something to be aware of because this will be information that you'll be asked for by any contracting officer. Grants.gov is already using the UEI. So if you're a nonprofit organization or anything working with grants, just remember that you'll have to have that handy. So basically, there's going to be a replacement of the DUNS based on federal acquisition regulation, meaning that it will be a change in law. And it's something that we're kind of bracing for. But at the same time, on your end, you really don't have to do much, especially if you're not already registered. It's just a new number you have to know. Great. Another thing I have to write on a sticky pad and put it in a folder so I can update my registration once a year. So just something to keep in mind. Another change is their verification of personal information, identity proofing. Again, it's met with a lot of consternation. This is for entity administrators only, which, my advice as a PTAC rep, you should have 2 entity administrators in your organization. I go by the hit by a bus rule. So, if you're hit by a bus tomorrow, you want somebody to be able to manage your entity. I wouldn't give that role out freely because it is the only role that allows you to delete the entity. So, definitely take that into consideration and act accordingly. Here's the basic my integration status. This is changed often. You can see the UEI, they're moving towards it. They're phasing it in. You can see the systems that are already in there. I don't know how they're going to get the rest of FPDS in there, but they know more than me. I know it's a huge undertaking, and it's going to, I think, just be a massive amount of data that they're rolling over or archiving, and that data strategy is yet to be seen. The entity information, again, you can now search for entities in SAM.Gov. You can do your purpose, entity type. So, this is great to just run some base research. Know what entities are in my area, know what entities, what set-asides. Just a pretty good base knowledge. Also exclusions. If you're considering a teammate or if you're considering working with somebody, you might want to know if they've been excluded. You want to, to me, it's a test of character. You want to know what the business is like, and if they can even contract with the government. The Workspace, a lot of great changes here. I'm really impressed with what they've done with it. They simplified everything. It does take a little bit of getting used to, but you have one place where you manage your entity. And it's based on best practices. So they really are listening and making changes accordingly. And the most important, help button. When I'm looking through the system, even I, a daily user of the system, run into roadblocks, barriers, have issues from time to time. So it's important to know that there's a help function on every page. There's a chat for the Federal Service Desk. There's a phone number you can call. You can call your PTAC first though, because chances are we've seen it before, and we've dealt with it. So again, the Workspace, tons of utility here. There's a lot going on. You'll see this unique entity ID function. You'll see the entity registration. You can do your reporting. You can add users and assign roles. And you can look at all of your contract opportunities, the ones you're following. Just a host of different functions here that they're necessary to do business with the government. When I'm assigning a role, they simplified it. So I always remember the administrator, usually, 2 to maybe 3. I really don't give that out lightly. But the viewer and data entry, you want to make sure that the people connected with your company are able to see technical documents for opportunities. They're able to get that next level of data view. We've had a lot of issues with that role being able to see technical documents. I'm not sure if it's due to you have to remember that we're not the only new users to this system. The contracting officer and the COR and the PM, they're all new users to the system as well. So it's not just us getting used to it. It's the people on the other side of the fence. And so, you want to, is it user error or is it a bug in the system? They're still kind of working through some of those issues. I can tell you if you're having trouble accessing technical documents during searches, reach out to your local PTAC because we kind of have some workarounds there. So the entity registrations, I don't know why they put this button here, but in order to update your record, it's these 3 tiny little dots right over here. When they first made the update, I was pulling my hair out trying to find it. So I just wanted to note that this is where you go. And again, if you're having trouble finding something, never hesitate to reach out. So from your entity registration, you can download your company core data, and you can download your reps and certs. Why is this important? Well, A, it saves you time from filling out those 12 pages in every RFP, but also because they have updated reps and certs. So if you haven't gone in and updated your reps and certs, you might want to look at that. There's a couple of new clauses. There's yet going to be another clause in the Federal Acquisition Regulation for the vaccination, and as the FAR Council has convened, that is coming. Just a little preview there of some changes that you're definitely want to be informed about those. So you can see it's pretty basic when you get into your Workspace. Remember that when you're downloading your reps and search, you have to click on the tab to your left. Then you pull the current record. Then you can download your FAR or your FAR and DFAR or your financial assistance report. Really helpful to keep on hand. And yeah, it's a great capability that they added to the system. So back to the UEI. How long will it take to get your unique identity, a unique entity ID? Well, good news is if you're already active, you have it. Chances are they're already phased in, and you can access that through SAM. Now, if you're just requesting the UEI, remember they do not become authoritative until April, and they're just starting to roll out that capability Q1 of 2022. Here's a little handy dandy mapping of the timeline. Again, April 4th is the date. It will include all of the systems that are connected to SAM. They're going to start using this, at which it's if you look at the system mapping diagram, it looks like spaghetti. So many different systems interact with SAM, which is why these changes are so difficult. So I always like to take that into account and kind of give them a break when I'm feeling frustrated and I'm not finding what I need. Again, if you have any questions, you can reach out to us. Chances are you already have your UEI. You just don't know it yet. So the help desk and the domain for help. You can see, you can go to a live chat. I'm an old school guy. I pick up the phone, or I go to the knowledge base. Their knowledge base, let's see, right here. The Federal Service Desk knowledge base is huge. It's got just a ton of information. You can see all the different areas that they cover here. And they did give you some quick user guides for the migration. They give you some base information, but if you're ever not finding what you need, this is always an option. And they keep it pretty well populated. Here's probably way too much information for you guys, but if you're ever interested on the changes that are coming to SAM.Gov, honestly, I'm not sure why you would be, unless if you're a fellow PTAC counselor, maybe. But they have a YouTube channel. The information's out there, and they really have spent a lot of effort and time to make sure all this is up to date. But we're always a resource at your local PTAC. I read through this stuff so you guys don't have to, really. I'm taking the bullet for you. And now my favorite part, we're going to run through a demo. So basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you some basic function. I'm going to show you the sign in. I'm going to run through some everyday type of activities that you'll be running on the site. I'm not going to get too in depth, too in the weeds. We're drinking from the fire hose enough here. So really, I want to keep it high level. But most importantly, I want your questions. Throw me out examples. Yes.
Real quick,
Sure.
That's a great segue. Before you go into the demo, we do have a couple of questions.
Perfect.
That just came in. I know we've been answering them in the chat, and Jane did. But one, somebody had a question about the reps and certs. What is a rep? What is a cert? I'm wondering what is encompassed in a rep and a cert. Is it PE or OEPA certification? I don't know what that is, or something along those lines. And then we have another one after that.
Okay, they might be referring to a professional engineer.
Okay.
Ohio EPA. So there are several different FAR clauses, Federal Acquisition Regulation clauses, that you have to meet as a company. It's a standard of doing business with the government. I believe last time I checked, there were over 40 that you're basically affirming that you meet the standard. It's things like You're not going to use child labor. You have equal opportunity, affirmative action. You have, they use it to determine whether or not you're a small business size standard or a small business concern. There are some new ones around telecommunications. I call it Section 889. So you're not using or providing to the government telecommunications equipment made by 11 different Chinese nationalist firms. And it's things that we help you walk through it when you're doing your SAM registration. But with every contract, there's a representations and certification section that you have to respond to really reaffirm that you're meeting the standard, that you're still a small business size concern. And I'll walk you through some of that when we go through the demo. I'll show you what it looks like. It's quite honestly, it's a necessity. It's not the funnest part of the job, but it's something that we have to help you understand because it really is important. You don't want to affirm and state that your business does something that they don't. It's something that your contracts guy is paying attention to. So you at least want to be aware of it and know the changes that are coming, because now that they have put out the executive guidance for vaccination mandates, that could really affect your business. I know it's a touchy topic, but that's our job at the PTAC to stay the most well informed. And I'd be surprised if you didn't start seeing that clause in your contract, definitely, but maybe even in reps and certs.
Billy, can I add to it? Because we
Certainly.
say it all the time, and I just looked it up on Google what it is, and then we have another question. But the representations and certifications are written guarantees made by institutions to sponsoring agencies. And then a representation, or the rep, is an account or statement of fact concerning the capabilities of an offerer about its abilities to perform on a contract.
And that's really an excellent definition. I want a foot stomp statement of fact. If you have a question about what a certain representation or certification that you're signing up for means, definitely reach out because we want to have we want to clarify and have you as you want to know what you're signing your business up for, because it is a contract. It's something that you're stating as fact. So it's definitely an important piece. And it's fluid, much like a lot of different things in the government space now. They are updating it often, so you want to be current.
Okay, great. And then Jane just typed something in. Reps and certs are declarations about potential contractors, vendors, a vendor's company that the government needs to know to determine eligibility to receive a contract. That's good.
Awesome.
And this last question, if the UEI is the same as the DUNS, is it actually the new UEI? I guess.
Yeah, I mean, kind of back to the future, right? The DUNS is going to go away. Really what it comes down to is the government didn't want an outside source having that much control on their authoritative data. Kind of can't blame them. It's really not going to have a huge impact on the contractor itself, other than having to know the new number and getting the old DUNS out of their system. But when it comes down to prime and subcontracting, I mean, it's definitely going to have a ripple effect throughout all of these different systems. And I hate to be the data analyst that has to update all that because it's going to be far-reaching. Again, it's a huge effort. They don't take it lightly because this is your authoritative number for your company. It's something that I'm sure we don't know the full impact of yet, but I think that we'll be able to work through it as it comes. I always try to remember that there's another guy, just like me on the other side of that fence, on the other side of the system. So I try to, kind of take it less, when I get frustrated, I just try to remember that everybody's trying their best here. These changes are made in the best interest. So I don't know if every UEI is going to be the exact same as your DUNS. That's actually an excellent question. It'd be the easiest way. So, I think that anything they can do to make life a little bit easier for the small businesses, they should probably stick to it. But again, it's fluid. They're trying to get this stuff rolled out by April. Until then, if you have any questions, definitely reach out to your PTAC. If you have any questions about what number you're going to use for your award or your contract, first stop is always your contracting officer. They'll be able to give you a little bit more guidance. And just a side note, contracting officers are our friends. Have good communication, build that rapport, build those relationships. They're here to help. And it's sometimes a little intimidating, the protocol of working with those folks, but you really want to have good communication with them because they want to see you succeed as well. So just a little note there. And I will go ahead, I'm going to pull up my SAM.Gov, and we can kind of start walking through an overview demo. It's let me I have to manage the screen a little bit. So let's get us back to SAM.Gov. Okay, everybody see me okay?
Yes.
As a yes. Okay. Silence is golden. So you'll see this is the basic migration. Just a note, some facts down here. This is what I wanted to foot stomp earlier, your feedback one. Every page has one, and they relate back to the specific page you're giving feedback on. So if there's something missing, I happen to tell every single one of my clients that they should give feedback on the site, and then I kind of foot stomp a couple of things that I want to see changed. But you'll see some updates up here on some of the planned maintenance and things like that. Overall, they're becoming a lot more transparent, and they want you to know what's going on with the site, and they want to help. But overall, everything you need here is going to be right down here in these domains for the most part. Some people will use the data services. That's really more for companies that are taking their API and pulling data directly from SAM.Gov, which if you have experience with GovWin, FedMine, Easy GovOps, a lot of the market research tools we use pull data direct because this is the authoritative data source. So overall, chances are you're going to the contract opportunities, you're looking for opportunities and events. You're probably pulling some wage data. I mentioned this earlier, federal hierarchy, I just don't touch it. Hate to say it, but it's a useless appendage on the system. So if you really have questions on, that agency data, go to USA Spending. It's a lot easier. So I'm going to go ahead and get signed in. And this is a basic single sign-on for the government space. You see handy dandy email password. It's double authenticated, and they're rolling login.gov out across a lot of systems. So if you don't have your login.gov ID, I would suggest you get one, even if you're not an entity in SAM, because you're going to need it eventually. So I'm going to go ahead and get a text message and just send you over a quick code. Let's see. If you're like me and you can't type, you can remember that you don't have to capitalize. And so this is your basic workspace. You know, again, it's got everything you need to conduct business with the government. You can see all your requests. You can see all my contract opportunity searches. You can add new roles, you know, depending on who you need to do what. You can do your reporting, which you see I'm not a SCA or a Davis-Bacon company, so I'm good there. Then you can see your registrations. Sorry, excuse me. It's a terrible time of year. So this was what I was talking about earlier, your actions button. I was going in here for the longest time, and you'll see that's my active status, my work in progress. Yeah, I could not find that for the life of me to be able to update and view my. There's usually an update option here, but you'll see my records active. This is what your basic record looks like. You'll see my unique ID and my DUNS. You'll see my cage, my address, basic business information. One thing to notice, you'll see the proceedings. You know, basically, I'm not debarred. I don't have any judgments against me. You can see my entity type. You can see basic account details. My taxpayer ID. One thing I want to note is your POCs. They are making changes to these different pieces of information. I usually, when I'm looking for an account or a point of contact with a company, you know, we have internal tools like FedMine, EasyGov Ops that pull some of that data. If it's a small business, I usually like using the Dynamic Small Business Search database from the SBA. Big shout out to them for having that information available. I usually find it a better resource, but overall, you can get to the company you know, that you're looking for through SAM.Gov if they are registered to do business with the government. And you know, you can also download and follow. This is your basic core data. So, you know, basic information on the company. What I mentioned earlier is your reps and search data. So you click on that tab, and then you can view the current. I have a work in progress. Most of you won't, and you know the different prior versions. So you'll see I can download my FAR, my FAR ND FAR, and then my financial assistance. And just to run through some of it, you know, these are the FAR clauses that you're signing up for. Each one is notated in your SAM.Gov registration. Yeah, if you ever want to do some light reading, they're all linked, so you can always hop in there. But really, it's the foundation that you're attesting to, because the standard to do business with the government. They want to know that you're not owned by a foreign government. They want to know, or if you are, that you're disclosing it. They want to know whether or not you're a small business, tax exemption. You know, some pretty basic standards that you need to live up to. Here's that new one, covered telecommunications equipment or services. Yeah, basically this is the standard to work with the government. They want to know that you're conducting business a certain way, because they're one of the biggest clients in the world. So yeah, it's sometimes we have this discussion of value with our clients. Is the extra cost, the administration, and the overhead is that cost of doing business worth it to have the government as a client? Yeah, I may be biased, but I say yay verily, because they're the best client in the world. They always pay on time, they always have more work, and they're always growing. Yeah, so it's definitely something you want to take into account though when you're signing up for these standards. because there is added administration, there is added cost. And now that we're kind of done with the the reps and certs piece, I'll kick us back over to our workspace just to show you a couple of things. Oh, and you can actually follow companies that you're looking up as well. So my workspace, these are what I come from a business development background, so I tend to use these functions a lot more. As a small business, you should be doing the same. But I just wanted to show you guys, good look and feel. These are the opportunities I'm following. One of my huge pet peeves is they do it by contract number and not opportunity name. Unless you're a Rain Man, you're not going to be able to keep all this straight. The good news is they can email you when an opportunity is updated. So that allows you to stay as current as possible on the different opportunities in your pipeline. It allows you to act quickly, and it really, it's a great feature to kind of keep you straight. Again, this can get pretty complex pretty quick. I know organizations that are following just a plethora of opportunities. So when you go in to look, it's not the most easy to navigate. But definitely use the email function. I always click immediate. I don't know who would want to be a week late on getting an update to an opportunity, but definitely utilize this. It's a great feature of the system. And here's my basic save searches. You'll see I use this account a lot for demonstrations, and I do actually have an active business, but a lot of this is just basic demo data. And we'll show you how to save some of these searches. Yes.
We have a couple questions that have come in.
Great.
As you're doing this. Should we see, Cindy is asking, should we see our certifications like WOSB on this page?
No, you'll see those in the Dynamic Small Business Search database. This SAM feeds DSBS. At least that's where I go to view them. I think the profiles are more complete, quite honestly.
They used to be listed in here. They're no longer, like if you're 8A, WOSB, it's no longer listed.
Well, since the SBA is the certifying authority, I mean, you self-certify in SAM.Gov. And let's go back. I have not looked. I honestly have not looked for it since they did the update. So let's go take a look.
Because I know it was in there before.
And a lot of this is an effort to simplify. So let's see.
I think it was under the business.
Proceeding. We'll go back to entity registration, business information.
Business information, let's see. No, it's not.
Now, I can tell you in your reps and certs, they will list whether or not you're a small business. So they should have a table here that's populated, listing me as a small business. Let's see. They should. Well, let's just do this. So you see how easy it was to just pull the reps and certs data.
Yes.
And this is what's going to populate. So you have DUNS, unique ID, and then we're running through all of this different data that we're attesting to when we're doing the registration. and you'll see, just how much it is. It's definitely something that we want to just stay current on. There have been some changes over the last year or two that, that affect certain sectors of industry, but not every sector. Okay. And this is usually your section, I think it's section K of RFPs, is your reps and certs. So being able to just pull this and attach it makes life a lot easier. See if I can't get to where I'm going. Okay, so here's your entity type, your TINs on file, not owned or controlled. All of these are things that I attested to in SAM.Gov that automatically populates this. And see, you'll see has not, are not. All of these are answers to questions that they're asking you during your registration process. So there's my small business size standard. You can see that I'm well under the 30 million. It's a good problem to have if I wasn't. But just my basic NAICS codes. Something important that I always like to mention. Your primary NAICS is going to be where you hold most of your business. I kind of use a rule of thumb that you want a good listing of your NAICS codes and your PSCs, but you shouldn't have 50 NAICS codes. A contracting officer is going to look at that. They're going to say, okay, they're just throwing NAICS codes at it. You should get with your PTAC counselor to see which ones are the most important. It's definitely something you should keep up to date. If you ever have any questions, we can usually get you close. I like to use a combination of NAICS and PSCs, especially when I'm searching, because there's a little bit more granularity, I find, when you're using a combination of codes. But your size standard, it's determined by you guys, Shonda, the SBA, right?
Yes. It's not determined by us, but once if they are in an industry that's based on revenue or the number of employees and the companies input that information, then the size standards chart will determine that based on the information that the person puts in. But yes, that is something that comes from the SBA.
It's definitely something that you want to keep track of as well. You guys are moving from a 3-year average to a 5-year average on revenues. Is that correct?
Correct. It'll kick into effect at the beginning of the year. That is correct.
And that's great for small business. It kind of gives them a little bit more runway.
Right. To finish up the question, if you can scroll down just a little, person that asked about WOSB, you can see, okay, if it's small, veteran-owned, service-disabled, small disadvantage, or the 8A woman-owned, so there it is. It'll state that right underneath the NAICS codes. And I think this answers the next question where someone asked, we have a couple questions that have come in now. The view record doesn't show a list of NAICS. So Billy pulled up the FAR and DFAR's report. And that's where you can see the NAICS codes. Robert, that was your question, Robert.
Is that Robert Hahn?
Yes.
Hey, Bob, good to see you on, bud. He's coming to us from sunny Arizona.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He's a great client, becoming a great friend. He's definitely getting spun up on this stuff. Small construction company, and he's doing great things.
Awesome. Okay, so we see where the certifications are listed, the socioeconomic categories, the NAICS. The next question, Lisa, how or where does one go to read the FAR and agree to the certification so that the appropriate certifications show up in SAM?
Certainly. So when you're registering in SAM, each FAR is linked, and you can go straight to the clause. yeah, you're a glutton for punishment if you want to read all the FAR. But they're available, and they're also available. Let me get back to my screen here.
You can pull it up online.
I'm going to stop the share real quick. That the share bar, I don't know why Zoom does that. It's the most inconvenient placement. It makes it hard to get back and forth between tabs. But here's your basic your records. So you'll see each one of these is linked, and you can click down and read through. So these keep you on site. And it's a really convenient way to just drill down into what specifically they're talking about. Some of these are more complex than others. But again, if you ever have any questions, reach out to your local PTAC. I'm finishing up a course on the DFAR. So I'm getting getting constant training on these issues and staying current with the data and the information, like all of our counselors do. We're all required to have a certain amount of training every year, and we do take a good interest in these changes because they affect every business. You want to know what the government's asking of you in order to have them as a client. So any questions, if you're not getting what you need by clicking down into here, never hesitate to reach out. If I can't help you, if it's out of my depth, we have great resources that we can refer to. I work locally with a couple of different law firms that are specifically knowledgeable about government contracting. And that goes, protests, contract law, and basically anything that you may need.
All right, we're almost finished here. So I think, Lisa, that should answer your question. And even though I'm going to address this because there could be other individuals on here, if you had a company that actually set up your SAM registration and you paid, you still should have the reps and certs because it's not something that you add in here. The reps and certs, they're already questions. The information is already in your SAM profile. You just have to respond and answer. And then also reps and certs can be if you actually get a contract, that there is a section in the contract that the contracting officer will include in your contract, but you don't have to add them. But again, to Billy's point, just so that you have an understanding of what they are, if you have a question, you click on the link and you still need more clarity, you still need more understanding, I'd say check with your PTAC. Someone is asking how, this is a great question, how can you add more NAICS codes to your record? So if you already have 4 or 3 or just 1, you want to increase your NAICS, add more NAICS codes. Can you demonstrate that?
Certainly. I won't go all the way into it, but basically when you have an entity, you click down here and you click on update, and then you will be asked whether or not you want to update the purpose of your registration in the data or just the data. You'll update just the data, and then it'll have screen prompts that'll walk you through to update your NAICS codes. We do Zoom meetings with our clients all the time. I pop it on screen share. We walk through together. So if you ever need that, we definitely have a local counselor that can assist you. Again, it's good to have an updated NAICS. Just a word to the wise: be a little bit careful of saturating your NAICS. But overall, it's pretty simple. Once you can find this little button right here, then you're home free. And you click to update, and then it'll take you. These are the exact same screens that the old SAM system used. So no changes no changes with the process. It's just finding the button to get there. and I'll pop out of that. They'll ask me if I want to save it. No, I'm good. When you do access the search function, you'll see the domains are listed. So every domain on the front page is accessible as a database that you can search. Yeah, again, most of you guys are going to go to contract opportunities. That's by far and away the most used database within SAM.Gov. And then what I usually do, I usually run with my NAICS code. You know what, since Bob's on, let's do some construction searches. This is for you, Bob. We'll go ahead and we'll do some non-residential building. You can see that if I just type in 2.3, it's because I know the code. But let's say I don't know the code. It should be popping up. Or maybe that, okay, so USA Spending has that capability. But basically what you want to do is you start 2. And then you can go 4, you can go 6. And if you look at 2.3 construction, very broad, right? It's huge industry. But then you go 2.3.6 construction of buildings, and each number you add gets you a little bit more granular. I'll keep it pretty high level, so we'll just go non-residential building. You can see it automatically populates. One thing I like to note is this sorts by relevance automatically. When I'm talking speed of business, I want updated date. I want the most updated information, updated opportunities. So 3,100 results. Well, I don't want to dig through that. So construction is a regional thing. So let's go ahead and look at some states. This is a new change. They used to have the default set to zip code, which always baffled me. We'll just do it this way. So Ohio, Indiana. We'll do, let's do Kentucky. We will not do that state up north, but we have narrowed it down to 75 opportunities. Okay, so I'm looking at 75 results, but I want to get in early on these opportunities. I don't, if the first time you're seeing an opportunity, it's a request for a proposal, your percentage of win has just dropped to almost 0. Now there are exceptions, and there are different qualifiers, but just from a bid no bid perspective, I want to look early on in the acquisition life cycle. So what I'm going to do is look at these notice types. These are so important, and there are great criteria. So your special notices, we'll walk through that here in a minute. But they're your notice of award, they're your event notices, things like that. Sources sought and pre-solicitation, that's my sweet spot. Okay, so I'm going to go and look for these different stages. And yeah, it's necessary to look at the sources sought and pre-solicitation because that's how the government does their market research. It is law that they need to do market research for some of these opportunities. And that's where you get to interact with the government. You get to respond to a request for information. You get to give your feedback. And that's really where you start shaping these opportunities. So if I'm doing, building information management, or if I'm doing engineering, I prefer to use Revit, or I prefer to use a specific version of AutoCAD. Well, that's the feedback I want to give the government. I want to make sure that gets written in as a requirement because that gives me an advantage. Or maybe I have a really niche set of capabilities that they really aren't thinking about when they put out the opportunity. Well, then I want to make sure I give them that feedback and let them know they should really have that as a requirement so that when I'm bidding, that differentiates me. So it's really where you can start managing these opportunities and creating an impact in your pipeline. But you'll see, I mean, just with some basic information, we went location, we went notice type, and we basic 4-digit NAICS. Now I have myself 25 opportunities that may be pertinent to what I do. Yeah, and what I can do with this, well, I can, again, this three dots, I can save it. I can download it to Excel. If you guys like to slice and dice the data in Excel, pretty easy to do there. I can also save this as a search. You know, and when you're managing your search, my advice is put your capabilities in buckets. You don't want to have a search for 10 different NAICS codes. Yeah, and that gets hairy quick. But say I do electrician, roofing, flooring. Those are 3 separate searches. Either that, or I'm looking at construction as a whole as a blanket search. So I want to get pretty granular. And why do I mention that? Well, because you want to make sure not just you are getting the data in a timely fashion, but you want to make sure that the right people in your organization are getting this data in a timely fashion. So maybe, you know, we all get together, PTAC comes out, we do a training, you know, we do a quick assessment of your organization and say, okay, who's in what role? And then we can help you do some of that planning on, okay, who should have what role in SAM.Gov, and then help everybody get on the same page with their searches, so that you're all viewing the same data. It's really important to make sure that you're running searches that are broad enough so that you're not missing anything, but narrow enough so that you're not getting in that paralysis by analysis. And that's tough. I mean, it's something that changes constantly. As your capabilities grow, your searches will change. But I call it the Goldilocks mix. It's not too much, it's not too little, it's just right to be able to act on it. Again, this is about getting actionable information. And you can get in here and play around with the search criteria. You're not going to break anything. They've probably already broken it if it can be broken. But utilize, you know, different bits of criteria and at different times, and create some familiarity with the search. You know, yeah, go ahead, Shana.
I just wanted, when you get a chance, Sharon is typed in here, if you could maybe the next thing show maybe how to pull up an industry day and talk about the importance of really attending an industry day, participating in them, and, you know, what value small businesses can get from participating in the industry day with an agency.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, that's you know, it's a great function of SAM.Gov. And we'll go back to the search. I could reset the search, but I'm just don't really trust it for some reason. I don't want any loose criteria in there messing my search up. So industry days. Yeah, you go through contract opportunities, and you'll see there's a couple of different ways to get to the same place. Yeah, I rarely use this overall search. I'd rather use the advanced search. I think it gives you a lot more capability. So whenever I'm searching for an industry day, okay, one thing to note, with the recent you know, changes to industry due to COVID, everybody going virtual, industry days are a lot more inclusive now. I think that's one of the few silver linings of this whole pandemic, is the fact that we can now connect to the customer without having to fly to California. Not saying that's not a bad deal, but yeah, it's become a lot more accessible. But at the same time, Again, a lot of government folks are working from home. If they're, you're not going to see them in person, chances are. So getting them on a webinar, on a phone call, in an email is kind of your best bet these days. And so in order to do that, I always select the notice type. It's always going to be a special notice. And I tend to customize my searches, so I can go industry. And I just feel like this is a lot more accurate than some of the other ways to get there. So industry day is my keyword. And then I'll just do, I usually run it by NAICS. So we'll go back and we'll hit this non-residential building construction NAICS again. Now you'll see a lot of these have expired. So you always switch this back to updated date. And so now I have all my industry days that I can save my search. I can pull it down. With construction, you'll probably have to be in person. So we'll make sure that we get Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky. Maybe I'll expand it a little bit. Yeah, we'll go with Pennsylvania. And so you can see it narrows it down pretty quickly. And again, updated date. And now not every search is going to return results. I mean, if I'm searching for an industry day, I don't expect there to be an industry day every week, but you still save the search. And then when you save the search, and we'll just hop over here to the save searches, you can see this actions button, and it will let you get notified whenever an opportunity hits. So I may have, 4 or 5 different searches saved. I always have at least a couple of industry day searches saved. And then I just click notify. So I get an email when there's something going on. I stay informed. And it's really, it's necessary to know when you have opportunities to talk to your client. Again, I usually search by NAICS and do it that way. But hop in here and play around with the different criteria, the different combinations of keywords and NAICS codes. If I'm looking at a construction NAICS code, maybe I want to look into building information management. See if there's anything there. Okay, so something may be coming up there. Maybe I want to look into AutoCAD, Revit. And those are just 2 types of software. Because if I'm bidding a proposal, I want to know that I'm using the tools they're using. I want to be able to put that in my past performance. I want to talk their language, which is so important when you're in the government space. Each organization has their own set of acronyms, unfortunately. But you can see, so for example, AFRC. While you can kind of get to those organizations by entering the code, in the name, you can also try to get there a couple of different ways, because this search for federal organizations, it's not terribly granular. You're not getting down to the office level. But what if I know that the U.S. Army Corps is USACE? And so let me reset the criteria a bit here. Get Alabama out of there. So when I'm looking for U.S. Army Corps of Engineer opportunities, I know my customer's language because I did my research, because I reached out to their small business office rep, because I looked at their strategic plan and their budget. So I'm going to know their tribal language, their local language that they use. And I'm going to use that to try to narrow down some of these opportunities. So USACE, okay, so that's the U.S. Army Corps. But I also know that they have districts. So see if I can't get there this way. Okay, so now you're looking at 775 opportunities for the Louisville district. Again, I'm talking their language, and you can see that gets me down to the office level. Something you're not going to get with the tier or the sub tier. And sometimes it works better than others, but here's the important information is know your client or know your prospect. It's something that will get you far because that's how you communicate. So I want all of these that are, as up to date as possible. Since I'm working and I'm looking at the Louisville district, you'll see some other districts came up. So I want to look at narrowing it down using my place of performance. Kentucky. Now, Ohio is kind of weird because we have about 4 different U.S. Army Corps districts that service. But, if I just quickly do my diligence, you'll see that, okay, so I'm down to 53 results. Perfect amount. I can get through that. I can pop it into Excel and I can slice and dice the data. I definitely want to, I don't know why they always sort by relevance. I think it's the best practice, but I definitely want to, look at these solicitations. Another thing to consider when you're looking at these is giving yourself time to reply. So when I'm looking at an opportunity, again, rule of thumb, if it's already an RFP and it's not in my vision, I'm not worrying about it. We're small businesses. We have a constraint on resources, so we want to work smart. But I'm going to go in here and I always set a custom date. And so I want time to reply, let's see, 2 weeks. And now I'm just leaving this date. Actually, sorry, that's wrong field. And there's nothing 2 weeks out, but I can play around with it. The one thing you don't want to do is get an opportunity that's due tomorrow and think you're going to have success. It's a waste of time. So you want to use these searches to really plan your pipeline. And utilize the PTAC as well. But these are the informational tools necessary for you guys to really start building that business development organization. And you can build a lot of these, fairly automated processes. It takes one time to go in and set up the search. Now, I do think you should do a scrub of your search probably once a year during strategic planning, which, by the way, folks, strategic planning is coming up. Utilize your PTAC to get you guys that market research that you're going to need when you're planning out years. We can pull a whole ton of great info to really help you guys start developing that vision, developing that 5-year plan. Because if you're not doing it, your competition is. That's kind of brass tacks. So utilize us. We're a great resource for that. And we're going to show you how to use a lot of these informational tools. That's all public. I mean, all this data is public. It's just a matter of being able to access it and turn it into information. Data is points, and information is putting those dots together so that you can act on it and then get an outcome. And so when you think about it like that, you should really be utilizing this tool every day and use it for your different data searches, contract opportunities, pulling basic entity information. I do like the fact that, so you do need to have a sign-on and you need to be tied. Now you need to have a sign-on to get to a lot of these databases. But if I'm running a large bid and proposal project, it's so much easier than having to ask each sub for their reps and certs. I just run a search through entity information, and then I can pull it down for any company. Yeah, again, your waste determinations, those will be for certain industries. You can pretty quickly pull up. I mean, this is pretty basic criteria. If you ever have any questions, you can always reach out. But you'll notice, you can look at different states, localities, and get that wage data that you're going to need to bid some of these projects. Overall, my best advice, when in doubt, reach out. I help clients set up searches all the time. Me and Bob are going to get together here soon and do the same. But overall, we do this daily, so we can give you some pro tips. We can help you get this running efficiently. With our email features, a lot of it's automated. But I'm definitely going in here and I'm pulling a couple of different things. I'm running a search for RFIs and source of salt, so that I'm pulling in all of the RFIs that are on the street that are in my capabilities. I'm running at least one search on industry dates. And then I'm probably running a search on full and open the RFPs, just to make sure nothing's falling off my desk without my vision. Another great capability is the ability to use set-asides. Now, I always like to keep in mind, if you are searching for specific set-asides, you also want to run a full and open and a small business search as well, because you really don't want to limit yourself. You want to have the situational awareness, but you definitely don't want to not consider something just because it's outside of your set-aside. You want to have every opportunity to bid. Well, I'll do a quick search and see. Okay, are there any? Okay, SDVOSB. And I'm going back to construction. Oh. And we'll go non-residential building. I want my updated date. Oh, there we go. And so now I'm running my set-aside. Again, getting here and play around with the criteria. Search is definitely an organic function, meaning it should grow with you, and your criteria should change. You'll notice that a lot of this search criteria is going to be used in multiple different systems. So USAspending.gov uses a lot of similar criteria. At the PTAC, we use a lot of similar criteria. So once you get comfortable with this, it really does transfer across these different platforms, because it's how we communicate in the government space. We communicate with 2, 4, and 6-digit numbers and unique identity or unique entity and identifiers. So it's necessary for you to know and get familiar with. Definitely don't feel shy when you're running through this criteria and doing the searches. Again, you're not going to break anything, but it's going to be necessary for you to have a good understanding of how this data works and what it means. So when I'm walking a client through opportunities, one of the things I always run them through is just your general info, your classification, your description, really high level information that I can use to quickly make a decision. So if this set aside was 8A, well, I know I'm not an 8A. And if I don't have a good 8A partner that I might want to team with, well, that's a quick no bid. It saved me a lot of time of reading through this whole opportunity. Really cool little feature, the interested vendors list. So if I'm looking at an opportunity and I'm interested, I can post my information here. Or I can use it to look for teammates. I do want to note that if you're the incumbent, or if you are, if you have an inside track on the opportunity, chances are you're not going to show up here in this list. So don't think this list is authoritative and the end all be all. Yeah, if I'm the incumbent, I'm not posting my information online. I don't want people to see me coming. But at the same time, it could be valuable to start building some of those relationships. Yeah, and the same goes for when you're doing your entity search. I mean, I can do a quick search of every, let's see, every entity. I'll just go with 45406 since we're keeping the construction theme. But I can search by, unique identifier, DUNS number, cage if I'm looking up a specific company. I can search by zip code. I can search, we'll just from that, see what comes up. Yeah, I can search by a kind of a ton of different criteria. Now, is this my first option when I'm searching for competitive intel and company information? No, it's not. But it is available, and it's there, so that if you need it, yes, it's a quick click away. Yeah, I'll give some time for some last questions. I know we're butting up against the lunch hour. So if anybody needs anything else, if I can't get to it, I can always, get with you afterwards and address any questions or issues. But we have about 8 minutes. So if you guys have any pressing needs, by all means, let me know.
Let me see. I don't see any other questions, Billy.
Silence is golden, Shonda.
That was really good. Great, lot of great information. I know there are so many changes with SAM, and just keeping it up to date, like Billy said. I think just kind of simplifying everything and showing everybody where things could be found, doing the demo. I think it was a really great session, very informative. If anybody does have any questions, go ahead and type them into the chat. One of the great things about this is we are recording it, so it will be, I didn't mention this at the beginning, but this is being recorded. So once the recording is finished, once it's finalized, it will be posted on the Ohio Business Matchmaker site. So this webinar, as well as all of the webinars leading up to the Matchmaker, and again, the Ohio Business Matchmaker will be on November, I think, 17th and 18th. Where are my notes? Yes, so on the Ohio Business Matchmaker site, the link for the webinar will be posted, as well as the PowerPoint presentation. So you can access it there, but more importantly, you can follow up with your PTAC counselor. So wherever you're located, if you're in Ohio, Jane put in the chat, if you can type it in again, Jane, you can visit the Ohio PTAC website to find your counselor. If you're in another state, you can go to the ABTAC, the Association of Procurement Technical Assistance site, to find your PTAC counselor. And as far as, let's see, I think some more other questions are coming in, and then I'll ask these, we'll pose these, and then we'll wrap up with more information about the Matchmaker, the next training for next week, to close out. But looks like Roman has a question. If I entered my entity into SAM 9 years ago, but now will it be active? Do I create a new entity, or do I update my info from 9 years ago? That's a good question.
Yeah, if your entity information is still available, then I would update your existing entity, because if you go and create a new one, you're going to cause a lot of confusion. If you have any trouble updating your entity, definitely let the PTAC know. And we can also give you resources like the Federal Service Desk. But that would be my suggestion.
Okay, yeah, I think that's great. Awesome. And I think Lisa's comments, Lisa said, thank you. This presentation improves every time. Billy has been doing, when all the updates with SAM came out earlier this year, and even last year when we were in beta SAM, Billy has continued to do presentation on the different updates, the different changes. So Lisa's saying thank you, and it improves every time, not because of the technical changes, but because you do all the heavy lifting and keeping up with the updates and changes. So thank you, great presentation today.
That's awesome. Yeah, thanks, Lisa. It really is a joy. Yeah, I get so much satisfaction helping small businesses. I always like to call it scrappy marketing. We don't get $1 million budgets. We got to get creative in solving these problems. And we have a challenge of competing with the big boys on the block. So any advantage I can give you guys, yeah, I'm always a fan of helping any way I can. But my pleasure. I really I enjoy each and every one of you.
So if you are planning to participate in the Matchmaker, if this is your first year, definitely recommend. This is the second webinar for the series. There's always a variety of webinars leading up to the Matchmaker to help you prepare. So last week's training, last week's webinar kicked off was what is the Matchmaker, making the most of the Matchmaker. So that should be posted on the Matchmaker site, and you can access that webinar. Again, if you want more updates with SAM, if you're a PTAC, if you're a small business in Ohio, you can visit ptac.ohio.edu to find the PTAC, the closest PTAC to you. If you're in another state, abtac-us.org. Hover over the United States, whatever state you're in, and then it will pull up the contact information. Next week, the webinar training will be on introduction to doing business with the government. So again, the Ohio Business Matchmaker is an opportunity for you as a small business to get engaged with government contracting, not at the federal level. And today's presentation was geared toward SAM.Gov, which is the portal or database all federal vendors have to be registered in. But if you are just getting started in government contracting, you definitely want to learn about how to do business with your local county, city, and then the state of Ohio. So PTACs are a wonderful, great organization to help you do just that. So you can find out how you need to get set up as a vendor, where you need to register as a vendor, because it's different, the vendor registration for the state or your city. And then what type of class codes that they may use as far as industry codes to represent your product or your service or your industry. PTACs are a great resource to help you with that if you need a capability statement, but also more importantly, as you prepare for the Matchmaker, we'll be having trainings every week. And then as we get into November, we may have trainings twice a week. So we'll post those on the Matchmaker. You can just Google Ohio Business Matchmaker, and then the actual event, it's a 2-day event where we will have contracting officers, acquisition personnel from the state, the city, the county, federal agencies that you will be able to set up. Well, when you register with the Matchmaker, you'll register with your NAICS codes that identify your product or your service. The agencies will register with their NAICS codes, and then they'll do a match to see if there's a match between an agency and then what an agency is looking for, what an agency needs as far as their NAICS. And then you will register with your NAICS as far as the services and products that you provide. Then you'll have a list of those agencies, and then you can set up sessions to interact with those contracting officers, government personnel, acquisition staff, and then engage with them with your capability statement. Basically pitch your business, who you are, what you do, and what you can offer. That Matchmaker is going to be on November 17th and 18th. This is what, our 15th year, 16th year, I've lost track. but prior to COVID, it was in person. The last in-person matchmaker we did was in 2019. It always took place in Dayton, Ohio at the Nutter Center. And we typically had like over 500 people to attend. So really a well-attended event, not only for you as a small business to engage with agencies, government agencies, but also business to business. So it gives you a good chance to do a lot of networking with other businesses, small businesses as well. And we will have, I think one of our sessions, we're going to have some small businesses that will talk about their experiences and what they got out of it, and give you some tips and recommendations of some things that you can do as you prepare. Somebody has a question, Megan, does a matchmaker target certain types of industries or does it hit everyone? Great question. What happens is at the matchmaker, you'll have a state agency, a federal agency, a city or a county will register, and then whatever that government entity is looking to buy. So if they are looking for someone to provide IT services, they're looking for someone to provide landscaping services, engineering services, whatever they're looking to buy, whatever they need, they will register with the NAICS codes that they are looking for, whatever service or product. And then what happens is you will register with the NAICS code that you provide as far as your industry, your product, or your service. So it doesn't cover all of the industries, but again, just what that particular agency is looking for. Hopefully that answers your question. You're welcome. That will be November 17th and 18th, so you can register. Registration is only $35. Very great deal. Awesome opportunity, so definitely want to sign up for that. And then next week is Introduction to Doing Business with the Government on the 20th. And I believe they'll be sending out another, is that right, Sharon? You'll be sending out more emails for next week's trainings as far as the link for registration. So awesome. I think that's it. Thank you so much. Again, this will be posted on the Matchmaker site, the link, as well as Sharon, since this is updated about SAM, will you also post this on the OU PTAC website?
Yes, it will be posted on the OU website as well.
Okay. Additional resources to help you prepare for the matchmaker, the trainings that started last week and all the trainings leading up to November 17th and 18th are primarily exclusively geared toward preparing you for the matchmaker. But the Ohio University PTAC has a great resource on their website. All of the trainings, the webinars that we've been doing for our government contracting series that we do on an annual basis, the links for those webinars are posted on their website. You can type the link for that. Jane, if you can type that in the chat. So that's another great place if you are just getting started with government contracting, or if you have some experience but you want to build upon your knowledge, please visit the Ohio PTAC's website. You can access all the great trainings that we did last year, wonderful trainings that you can access prior to the matchmaker. And that's coming. And with that said, we are just about a couple minutes over. Thank you so much for your time today. Hopefully you can join us next